that Donald Trump has bombed this year, and I was giving you a list of like 8 countries that Donald Trump has bombed. We're going to talk about another country that Donald Trump is planning to bomb now, which is Greenland. And he's actually started today. He's like, we're going to take over Greenland. And okay, Denmark actually invaded the country 300 years ago. They've been living there, but they haven't done anything in Greenland. They haven't spent a lot of money yet. We're going to be able to take use of the land better than them. We're going to be able to make use of the oil better than them. And that's right. That gives us the justification to actually attack them. So going back to the list of the countries that America has attacked, we talked about Syria. They attacked Syria this year again as well. We talked about Somalia. We talked about Venezuela. We talked about Nigeria. And then the next on the list is actually Iran. So that was before Syria. So I'm going to start reading this. Okay, so amid short-lived hostilities which break out between Iran and Israel earlier this year, the U.S. intervened and struck 3 key nuclear sites in Iran on June 22. Analysts said that it was a highly sophisticated mission involving the U.S. Air Force and Navy. So basically, they're trying to do that. It was highly sophisticated, so they knew the targets they were going to hit. They want as less casualties as possible. In a televised address, Trump justified the attack on Iran's Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo nuclear sites, saying that they would curtail the nuclear threat posed by Tehran. By the way, there was no threat of nuclear threat by Iran. America's anti-threat, the threat agency itself said that. We're talking about the UN threat agency. Actually, they said that Iran was not even close to building a nuclear weapon. According to them, Iran only had 60% of the material of the nuclear weapon, and there was no way they were actually going to do it. Iran told them themselves that Iran was not going to do it, so I don't know why they actually did that. Obviously, there was another motive behind it. U.S. is controlled by Israel, and there was a great motivation behind it because they believe that Iran does support terrorism. The 3 sites were involved in the production or storage of enriched uranium, which the U.S. claimed had become or was approaching weapons grade. They believed that it was approaching it, all right? So maybe that was good enough. Maybe that was a good excuse. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi later confirmed that some of the sites had sustained extensive damage, and the Pentagon estimated the attack set back Iran's nuclear program by about 2 years. So now they're saying that it would take Iran for 2 more years to actually set up the nuclear weapons because of the attack. So they've set it back. Under pressure to respond in a manner that appeared proportionate, Iran struck a U.S. airbase in Qatar the day after the U.S. strikes in what was likely a symbolic action, as no injuries or deaths were reported. I don't even blame Iran for this, to be honest, because US attacked Iran first, and then they attacked Qatar. So there was going to be a bit of retaliation, which Iran did. Trump declared a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, bringing the 12-day war to an end. More than 1,100 Iranians and 28 Israelis were killed during the open hostilities. Like, think about it, right? They're trying to make it look like it was a very successful, very sophisticated mission, and there were not many casualties. There was 1,100 Iranian people that actually died in that war, and Trump is trying to take all the credit of the war. It's like we ended the war in Iran, bro. The war actually started in his regime. It was like a 12 days war. It's not like it's been going on for a year. 12 days war. 1,100 Iranians were killed in the war. And then he's taking all the credit for actually stopping the war. But during this meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this week, Trump threatened to hit Iran again. Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again, and if they are, we're going to have a knock them down. He said, referring to the nuclear program, we'll knock the hell out of them. And Iran is forbidden from developing nuclear weapons as a signatory to the 1970 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It also signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Western powers, including the US, agreeing to limit uranium enrichment levels in exchange for sanctions relief. All right. However, Trump withdrew the US from the pact in 2018 during his first term as US president, claiming it had been badly negotiated under the Obama administration. So Trump actually thought that it was badly negotiated under the Obama administration, and that's why I'm going to make the negotiation better, which didn't seem out to be good. He couldn't do that. One other country is Yemen, and that's why I kind of hate like some of the here. I'm gonna hate some of the Muslim countries as well because they're not helping out. The Middle Eastern countries, they're all about the money. So many of the countries, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, they're all about the money, and that's why they would sacrifice some of their own countries, some of their own allies, previous allies, just because they would see a benefit in some sort of deals with like USA or Israel, let's say. So since January 12, 2024, the US has targeted Yemen's Houthis, an Iran aligned group that controls much of Yemen's populous northwest, in a series of air and naval attacks. US is the one that is supplying the weapons. The US says strikes were carried out in retaliation for Houthi attacks on Israel linked vessels passing through the Red Sea in solidarity with Gaza. The strikes escalated to daily attacks in March 2025 under the new Trump administration under a mission uh, codenamed Operation Rough Raider. There's always an excuse. This excuse is that Houthis were trying to help the Palestinians, and that's why we had to do that because they were showing solidarity with Gaza. Dozens of people were unalived, and the attacks extensively destroyed infrastructure, including ports, airports, radar systems, air defense, ballistic launch sites, and um, even migrant holding centers in Sana'a and Hodeidah. The U.S. strikes finally came to an end on May 6th, following a truce brokered by Oman. Casualties count from both sides differ. The US claims to have killed about 500 Houthis, while Yemen's Houthi run Ministry of Health said 123 people. Most of them civilians had been killed by April, following the US escalation. Yeah, so Houthis are not probably trying to play the political game, otherwise they could have said more, but it's like they feel like they look bad if there's more people that got unalive. So they want to make themselves look a little bit better. So 125 less casualties looks better on their part. As many as 247 people, including many women and children, were injured, the ministry said. And Iraq as well, by the way. I don't think people actually thought about it because that happened in 2005 or 2008 or something like this for the first time. But even recently, Iraq was bombed again. The US launched airstrikes in Iraq's Al Anbar province on March 13, killing a high profile ISIL member, according to the US military Central Command, CENTCOM. The thing is, if you can still do it, even though we have, according to the US, they have given the authority back to those countries. They've given the authority back to Afghanistan. They've given the authority back to Iraq, the countries that they've invaded previously. But anytime they feel like there's a threat of terrorism, anytime they feel like some of the members of the group that they've been looking for, let's say Hamas or Al Qaeda or ISIS, they've been found in those countries. They can always bomb them without the permission of the actual government, which makes you think that who is actually running the country. So you know who is in control, right? You know who's in control, and that probably goes against the UN laws, all of the UN laws. Just like when they bombed Venezuela, that went against the UN laws because they didn't take any permission. The government of Venezuela wasn't told about this. The UN wasn't told about this. The action was just taken. The group's second in command, Abdullah Abu Khadija Mali Mushlik Al Rafai, and another unnamed operative were reported to have been killed in the strikes. CENTCOM claimed both men were wearing unexploded suicide vests and were holding weapons at the time of the strikes. The US also said that the strikes were carried out jointly with Iraqi intelligence. So they are saying that they were carried out jointly with Iraqi intelligence, but it barely happens, to be honest. This is the first thing they would say just to defend themselves. But you saw what happened in Qatar. Israel was the one who carried out the attacks in Qatar, and they told U.S. last minute, and Qatar was apparently never actually informed of this. Their government was never actually informed of this. They told them later, but the Qatar government doesn't have a lot of power. They're taking the weapons. I mean, they buy all of the weapons from U.S. and Israel anyway, so they couldn't say much about this. It looks like they were just happy to be there, happy to be in a relationship with them. They didn't want to get they didn't want to get more damage. In a celebratory post on Truth Social the day after Trump praised U.S. troops for the action, today the fugitive leader of ISIS in Iraq was killed. Trump wrote, "He was relentlessly hunted down by our intrepid warfighters. His miserable life was terminated along with other members of ISIS in coordination with the Iraqi government and the Kurdish regional government. Peace through strength. Wow, peace through strength. That is the wording they're using. That is very positive way of thinking. Actually, peace through strength. Peace through war, peace through fight. Iraq's prime minister, in a statement on X, also on March 14th, said Adu Khadija was known as ISIL deputy caliph, overseeing an operation in Iraq and Syria, and that he was one of the most dangerous terrorists in Iraq and the world. The Obama administration previously authorized strikes on ISIL locations in Iraq back in 2014, which we know actually happened. Okay, so now we want to see what Trump actually said about the military operations overseas in the past. In the past, his statements were completely different. Now he's completely doing 180 on everything that he said. Trump earned widespread support from many Americans tired of the country's costly involvement in the Middle East when he pledged during the campaign for the first time as president to put America first and stop U.S. involvement in the foreign conflicts. I remember when he was running for the presidency in 2024, that was a whole campaign that we're gonna not gonna spend any money, even on the aid, even on the wars that we are kind of like justly fighting or like indirectly fighting. Like Russia bombed Ukraine, and Ukraine was the oppressed one in that case. So helping Ukraine wouldn't have been that much of a problem, but because we were giving aid to them, Trump always had a problem with it. He thought that Putin would actually come to an agreement because he respects Trump. Trump would be able to better suited for the job of the presidency at that time. And he said the same thing about Israel and Palestine. He said we don't need any sort of foreign involvement. And now it seems like the policy has completely changed. He feels like if America needs to get a better economy, if it's good for America, then we can start wars. So it depends. If the war is good for us, we can do it. So I think at the moment they're only looking for the countries that cannot fight back. Like we saw with Venezuela, they don't have a military power. So America thinks they can get away by doing this. We don't want to be picking fights with like Russia and China, and the same thing with like Greenland. All right, Greenland is not going to be fighting us back. Greenland is a peaceful country. They don't even have an army, right? They're getting run by Denmark. So obviously they're not going to be able to fight back. And U.S. stance is just take over the country because it's easy. So in one, we're talking about 2024 now. In one presidential debate, Trump accused the former Bush administration of failing in handling of the fallout of the 9/11 terrorist attacks on New York City in September 2001, and said the war in Iraq is a big fat mistake. We spent $2 million, thousands of lives. Now, here, this guy is talking about millions of dollars. He's talking about thousands of lives, kind of doing exactly the same thing. Thousands of lives, 1,100 people in Iran, 500 people in Yemen, many other people in other countries, a few people in Venezuela. Just seems like he's kind of doing the same thing. He's actually doubling down on the mistakes that the previous administrations actually made. I think what's happening right now is Trump made a lot of promises. He said I was gonna boom the American economy. I was gonna make a lot of changes to the country, and he couldn't do any of that. He couldn't deliver on any of the promises. So now he's kind of feeling down. He's like, let me just distract them by doing those wars. Let me just do this. You're like on a smaller scale when you can't actually make changes to yourself. It's like you're trying to devalue everybody else. You're like, oh, let me just put everybody else down so it makes me look good. So he couldn't change the country. He couldn't make the economy better. He couldn't do anything good for the country. He's like, let me just do this, attack the other countries, because he's going to get some support. To be honest, there's Trump fans are always going to find a way to defend him. So at the start of his second term in January 2025, Trump pledged to restore peace by bringing an end to ongoing global conflicts. His success, he said during his inaugural address, would be judged by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. The wars that we never get into. So that's how this guy was actually measuring success. But since his presidency, I'm talking about just this year, he's been in 8 wars, and these are the wars that he started. So how do you want to measure the success here? Not passing any judgments. That's his own words. Well, Trump has undoubtedly played a role in pausing some conflicts around the world this year, said Sharon Shidor, head of Global South at the US based Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. His efforts lacked the delicate, sustained behind the scenes diplomacy usually required in global conflicts. Furthermore, in South America in particular, Trump appears to be reverting to the old days of the 20th century when US intervention toppled multiple governments from Brazil to Bolivia. Hmm, I think they might be doing this again. Washington's escalated offensive in Latin America and strikes in Nigeria and Somalia are partly performative acts rooted in domestic reverse of foreign policy. Alright, guys, I'm gonna get off stream now. Probably get some sleep. Have a good night.